Thanks for joining us for VaxTalks. I'm Brad Satin, and we're joined today by Dr. Stephen Luber. He is a retired clinical pediatrician, associate clinical professor at the University of Washington Medical School, and a board member of Why We Vax. Dr. Luber, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for the invitation.
Today we are talking about measles, and I guess the big question folks may have is measles still a thing? The number of cases are small, and frankly, we don't hear a whole lot about measles these days.
We are a victim of our own success. Clearly, most of us grew up, those of us over 50, with measles around, and it was fully expected to get the measles when you were a child. People forget that it was a serious illness. It was elevated temperature, 4 to 5 days, 1 out of 1,000 had brain damage from it. 1 out of 1,000 actually expired from measles at that time. With the measles vaccine being released in 1963, measles virtually disappeared from the American landscape. There were no cases in the year 2000. We've crept up since that time to about 1,800 to 2,000 cases per year in the United States. Virtually all are in unvaccinated communities. And with the significant anti-vax talks going on in groups of people not being vaccinated, it just takes one person to get an epidemic going. Measles is exceedingly contagious. 95% of the people exposed to it will get it if they are susceptible to it. We're familiar with COVID. Each person infected will maybe infect 2 or 3 other people. With measles, it's 12 to 18. It's by far the most contagious thing that we are dealing with. The disease is significant in that the attack rate is 90%, as we said, for those around us. And there is no treatment for it, but we have an exceedingly stable, effective vaccine. The virus doesn't drift, it doesn't mutate. And with 2 vaccinations, one typically at a year and the other between 4 and 6 years of age, there's no reason to have measles.
Well, for folks who don't know much about what measles is, what is it? I remember as a kid it being described as a really bad rash. What's the danger if you get it?
Measles is an RNA virus. You have a fever, cough, conjunctivitis or eye inflammation, runny nose, and generalized malaise. You really feel sick. You get a rash that starts on the face and then moves down the body. Scarlet, red rash, very distinctive. The problem is that we have no treatment for it that's significant, and that a certain number of the people will have a bad outcome from it. There's no reason to have it. Worldwide, it's a very significant problem.
So where is it coming from?
There has been phenomenal worldwide attempts to control measles. Measles is only hosted by the human, so you don't have any animal reservoirs. And there were tremendous vaccination programs going on to less developed nations, which have been put on hold with the COVID. And you're starting to see breakouts in Africa, Southeast Asia. And if we have reemergence of international travel, they can bring that disease back to the United States.
So let's talk about the vaccine at a time when there are folks out there certainly who are against vaccines. What should they know about this?
Well, first, we are victims of our own success. People haven't seen measles. They haven't heard of anyone having measles. So why should I worry about it? But the vaccine is an attenuated live virus vaccine. It's given at 1 year of age, typically. About 7% of the time it will not take. For that reason, we always give a second dose, usually at 4 to 6 years of age. It's not a booster. It's just covering for those who didn't take the first time, will generally take the second time. And if you've had the series of vaccinations, you will be immune for life.
It sounds like we really were this close to eliminating it completely.
It's interesting. It's one of those viruses that there was a concerted effort to eliminate it, because if you eliminate it from humans, it doesn't exist anymore. And it was considered possible to do that around the year 2000 when there were virtually no cases in the United States and international vaccination programs were close to eliminating it. Once again, with international anti-vaccination programs in certain areas and with relaxation of intensity in the United States and the emergence of anti-vaccination theory or publicity in the United States, we've created once again a susceptible population. But we don't have to have measles. It is potentially eradicatable.
So at that very young age, parents have to ensure their kids get the vaccine.
Correct. And I think if they have just a real good discussion with their primary care physician, it almost always resolves. People will come into the office with, I don't want that, or this kind of thing that they heard from their neighbor. And just a sensitive discussion between them and their clinician usually resolves the problem. Occasionally, there's someone that just absolutely refuses. The problem then emerges as they go into school, because it is required by law in virtually every state in this union that you be immunized against measles to go to public school.
You know, you actually stole my last question there about school. Dr. Luber, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us at home. This is VaxTalks. For more information, go to whywevax.org.